Would you pay the same amount of money on finance for a Golf R than for an Audi S3 that comes with standard fine Napa leather and those 4 rings on its nose? Hello and welcome back to the Volks Wizard channel, and welcome back to the Volks Wizard kitchen. Today's video follows on from my previous kitchen based videos on the configurator for the new Golf GTI and Club Sport, and most recently the one for the Golf R as well. This time though, we're going to concentrate on those cars' closest rival, which is the new facelifted Audi S3. In the past, it wasn't really a rival for either of the cars, but now Audi, I think, have listened to the criticism and they've given it more power, 333 horsepower up from the old car's 310, and they've given it the Magna torque vectoring, torque splitting rear diff, which was previously only reserved for the RS3 and also the Golf R. So basically, it's a perfect match now for the Golf R when it comes to hardware. In this video, we're going to see how it compares on paper. So we're going to look at the price, we're going to look at the standard spec, we're going to look at the options as well, and we're also going to compare it when it comes to finance, because that obviously is super important. So yeah, sit back, grab a drink, and let's go and spec up the new Audi S3. I should point out, Audi UK have very kindly loaned me one of their S3 Sportbacks for review, and in due course there'll be a full review video on that car. As part of researching that car, I have to go through the spec and options and pricing, and it seemed a good time to share that with you in this video. So let's start off then with the various models available. Firstly, we have 2 body styles, which you don't get with the Golf R. Well, you actually do. You get the Golf R hatch and estate. With this S3, we get the Sportback, which is a 5-door hatchback, and you get the S3 Saloon, a 4-door saloon. There are also 2 trim levels. You have the Black Edition, which is the cheapest one in the range. There's no normal S3. Surely it should just be called the Audi S3. How can you have a Black Edition of a car that doesn't exist? Anyway, and there's the Audi S3 Vorsprung. Now, it's easy to look at the website and think, blimey, that's actually cheaper than a Golf R Black Edition. Well, unfortunately, Audi, for some reason, seem to put the on-the-road price sort of secondary on their website, and that's another £2,480 extra. So actually, the Audi S3 range starts at £47,520, which is a fair chunk more than the 45-ish for the Golf R Black Edition. But as ever, there are nuances to the spec and the pricing, and particularly the finance, which might make the Audi cheaper overall, or if it's expensive, it could be marginally more expensive than the Golf. Would you pay the same amount of money on finance for a Golf R than for an Audi S3 that comes with standard fine Napa leather and those 4 rings on its nose? Well, let's delve into the spec and pricing and see if we can answer that question. Okay, so to keep things simple, we're only going to talk about the S3 Sportback in this video, but anything that applies to the Sportback also seems to apply to the Saloon, whether it's standard spec, options, Black Edition, Vorsprung, it all seems to have been carried over wholesale. The only difference is that the S3 Saloon costs £565 more than the Sportback, and that equates to another £10 per month over a 4-year, 10,000 mile per year PCP. So if you like the Saloon, then buy it. I feel it's going to depreciate more, but Audi don't. The optional final payment is pretty much identical to that of the Sportback. Okay, let's start off then with the standard spec. So the entry-level car is the Black Edition. It comes as standard with LED headlights, but they're not matrix LED headlights. You still get dynamic indicators, and I think you still get the trick DRLs and the sort of welcome thing they do when you unlock the car, but you don't get LED matrix. So with your auto main beam, it will turn the main beam off completely, not just bits of the main beam to stop blinding other drivers. I love LED matrix. To get that, you have to buy the Tech Pack Pro, which we'll talk about in a bit. As you may know, if you've watched my old S3 videos, of which there are at least 3, you will know that I was never a big fan of the 8Y generation A3, S3, RS3 interior. They have now put microfiber on the dash and the doors, and that has the effect, because it's matte, it looks more expensive than anything shiny. You've also got a head-up display as standard, which is optional on the Golf. You have the Sonos sound system, so that's basically an audio system upgrade equivalent to Volkswagen's. And you have the 12.3-inch Audi Virtual Cockpit Plus. It's no big deal now, but it's a little bit configurable. It's nice to have. The touchscreen, I think it's pretty similar to the old one in the pre-facelift car, 10.1-inch. It's not like a night and day different system that we get with the Golf, but I'm hoping the software is the new one that we had with the Golf so that it's more reliable than it was in the old cars, because the old cars still suffered from all the glitches that we had in the Golf, but funnily enough, people didn't seem to complain that much about them. You get Amazon Alexa app as well, which is must be related to voice control. Adaptive cruise control is now standard, and as I mentioned earlier, the standard interior is trimmed in fine Napa leather, and this is only available in black. There was a lighter colour option on the pre-facelift car. It's got rock grey diamond stitching, and it's heated as well. So compared to the Golf R's standard cloth interior with those slightly tacky blue highlights, I think this is a very big plus point for the S3. Let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, on to the Vorsprung then. So this is £5,475 more than the Black Edition. What does that not insignificant sum of money buy you? Well, keep that figure in your mind when I go through these things. So you get the proper LED matrix headlights instead of just LED headlights. You get the panoramic glass sunroof. You get a memory function for the door mirrors and the driver's seat. You get electric adjustment of both front seats, something that's not even available as an option on the Golf. You get keyless entry, which I'm sure you can turn off if you don't like it, but it does have that cool function where you can waggle your foot under the bumper and the tailgate opens as long as you've got the keys on you. You also get a load of assistance things, which I'm not really going to go into. The downside of those, as well as them being assistant things that you probably don't need, is that you get the round steering wheel, which looks like the tiller of a ship. You get the Audi beam, which you also get on the Black Edition, but on the Black Edition you just get the very unimpressive S logo beamed onto the ground from the door. It doesn't say S3, and there's a lot of that on this car, which is really annoying. They've done that for a few years now. On the Vorsprung, it says Vorsprung. You also get carbon fibre mirror casings, and you get carbon inlays. Neither of those are available as an option on the Black Edition. I haven't seen the carbon inlays. I don't like them in the Golf, but in Audis it tends to be more expensive looking, though I do really like the microfiber inlays in the Black Edition, so they'd have to be really good to be better than those. And last but not least, we have adaptive dampers, which are only available on the Vorsprung. You can't even have them on your Black Edition as an option. And this, to me, is a bit of a problem, because within 20 yards of driving the passive damper S3 Black Edition that's on my driveway, I decided it was too firm for me and I would really need adaptive dampers. If I wanted those, I'd have to have a Vorsprung, which is £5,500 more than the Black Edition, but the extras do not amount to £5,500 worth. And that's because there is an option available on the Black Edition called the Tech Pack Pro, and that gets you the matrix headlights, it gets you the pan roof, it gets you the memory function for the mirrors and seats, it gets you the electric adjustment of the seats as well, it gets you keyless entry. So the only thing it really doesn't get you is the carbon bits and the adaptive dampers. And the adaptive dampers on any other car would be £1,000, but it's £5,500. I have to buy the Vorsprung. But then this would then push me towards the Golf. Tricky. One area where Volkswagen can't compete though is exterior body colours. There's a massive range available on the S3. Contrast that with the Golf R, where there are just 3. So we'll hop onto the configurator and we'll have a look at the costs along the way. The free colour is Arcona White. I'd love to know what these names mean. I looked it up. Arcona is either a cape on an island off the coast of northeast Germany that has cliffs like the White Cliffs of Dover, or it's a folk rock band from Russia. Anyway, you don't want that, whatever it means, because it doesn't really do the S3 any favours. So let's move on to metallic paint finishes. The first one is District Green. So this is a bit Marmite. I think maybe it's a bit ahead of its time. Green's been filtering back into the palettes for quite a long time now. £595 gets you that. I would certainly consider it, but I'd need to see it in the metal. Glacier White, a posh white. I don't think it will help the S3 an awful lot, £595. Mythos Black, it's been around a while, £595. Navara Blue, £595, which I've got on the loan car. The very high maintenance colour, as is Mythos Black. Progressive Red, it's a metallic, replaced Tango Red, not seen that in the metal. They can look pretty good in red, like most cars anyway. Python Yellow, £595, that is definitely Marmite. And Ascari Blue, £895, so a bit of a premium for that. I believe that came out with the RS6 C7 generation performance model about 8 years ago, towards the end of the run. It's a kind of like a subdued blue. It's lighter than Navara Blue. I think it reminds me a bit of the R36 Passat Blue. Pearl Effect paint, where you can have a Pearl Effect for the same price as a cheap metallic. Daytona Grey, stalwart of the range, been in the range for the best part of 20 years because it shows off the car's lines. And the A3E, this new generation since 2020, has got some curves to it, £595. Now, this is where things get complicated. Audi exclusive are colours that you can order, but because they're a bit weird, they charge you a premium, quite a big premium. £4,000 gets you Suzuka Grey, which is just another white, really. It's not that grey. Ipanema Brown, a bit Marmite. That looks a bit like Marmite, actually. Diamond Beige, this is an interesting one. Again, one you need to see in the metal. Beige doesn't sound that appealing, but it's a bit grey with a bit of brown in it. It actually looks quite nice, but £4,000 nice, not so sure. Then there's Pearl Effect ones as well. So Goodwood Green, this was an RS4 colour B5 and nobody would buy it, the car in that colour, but it's come back now. It says it's Pearl Effect, but it looks pretty flat. Nimbus Grey, that's the original TT Concept and TT Roadster colour. Cool colour, but £4,000. Night Blue, that's like an old Audi 100 colour, £4,000. Sepang Blue, a relatively recent RS or S colour. And Merlin Pearl Effect, love that. I think that was TT as well, £4,000. And then there's a whole range of other colours that they don't even show you on the configurator, various reds, blues and greens. Again, £4,000. Wheels, well, this is interesting. You can have the standard wheels, or you can pay no extra and make your car look like a Vorsprung. So yeah, which would you go for? Design-wise, well, it's very subjective. I don't think either of the wheels is particularly offensive. There's a subtle BBS influence to the Vorsprung wheel. That's probably the one I'd go for. Whichever you go for, they are 19-inch diameter, 8 inches wide, and they have 2, 3, 5, 35, 19 tyres. Interior, there's nothing you can do even in the options to change this, but it's pretty nice. There was a recycled bottle interior that would look really cheap, so it's probably good. It's just a Napa leather. Okay, options. As I mentioned earlier, Tech Pack Pro, it's probably a bit of a no-brainer. I think £3,050. It's not bad for £3,000, but it puts the car over 50k. We'll talk about that later. For some reason, they're listing a toolkit and jack as an option at 25 quid when that's actually listed in the standard spec. Red brake calipers, that's probably the only other interesting option. 300 quid, and you've got to choose them carefully depending on your body colour. We also actually have black roof rails available. So since the Sportbacks came out in 2004, Audi have allowed you to put roof rails on and giving it a little Avant look. I think it's pretty cool. Being a black edition, they're only available in black. And you can have extra airbags. So let's have a think about this. Front and rear side airbags with head airbags and interaction airbag. Sounds like fun. There's also an ISOFIX option for no extra that gives you ISOFIX on the front and on the outer rear seat. So even if you don't want that, if it's free, just get it because the person who buys the car off you may insist on having that. Also, it's worth pointing out you can pay extra to extend the warranty. So £295 gets you an extra year or up to 75,000 miles instead of 60. And then 630 gets you 5 years and 90. Important if you're going to keep the car, I'm sure it will pay for itself. Now, when it comes to the options on the Vorsprung, they're basically the same as on the black edition, apart from you don't get the Technology Pack Pro because all those bits are thrown in anyway. So now let's move on to finance. Now we know that the Golf R Black Edition is a little bit cheaper than the S3 Black Edition. That maintains a hierarchy in the Volkswagen Group because Volkswagen is the people's car and Audi is the premium brand. So you need to pay a premium for the Audi over the people's car. But because the Audi, being a premium brand, may not depreciate as much as the people's car, it would not be impossible that the finance payments on the Audi would be the same or even potentially cheaper than the Volkswagen. Anyway, I've done some proper full-on nerd number crunching, comparing the finance quotes for the Golf R and the S3, and this is what I've found out. So let's take a Golf R Black Edition, no options, it's pretty good spec as standard, but we've got metallic paint on it. That's £45,875. An Audi S3 Sportback Black Edition with metallic is £47,520, so that's actually £1,645 more. Now the standard spec of the S3 is pretty good, by the way. So even though it's a bit more expensive, you get leather, which you don't get on the Golf, that's another £2,000. You get adaptive cruise, you get the Sonos sound system, but you don't get the upgrade sound system on the Golf. But you don't get the Golf's LED matrix headlights, and you don't get the Golf's keyless entry unless you go for the tech pack. So even though it's more expensive, which is correct for it being an Audi, actually, when it comes to the spec, there's not a lot in it. You know, if you add leather to the Golf, it's actually more expensive than the S3. The problem is the adaptive dampers, which I mentioned earlier, but yeah, I've talked about that already. So on a PCP, 10,000 miles per year, 48 months, 4 years, Volkswagen's APR is lower, 6.9%. Audi, the premium brand, charge you a premium on the finance, 8.9%. But Volkswagen only give you a deposit contribution of £2,500, and Audi give you £3,500, so I guess you get a premium there as well, which makes it cheaper. Anyway, you put in £6,881.25, and that produces the total credits. The amount of credit for the Volkswagen is £36,493.75. For the Audi, it's £37,138.75. So that price difference I mentioned earlier is actually less when it comes to the amount of credit because they've given you a deposit contribution. Then we have to look at the monthly figures. So Volkswagen, £488.52. The Audi, with its fine Napa leather interior and 4 rings on the bonnet, just £4 more, £492.84. So think about that. Now, if you decide to buy the car at the end of the term with the optional final payment, then that's when the Audi is quite a lot more expensive because it's retained more of its value and therefore you have to pay more to buy it. So the optional final payment on the Volkswagen, £21,286.80. On the Audi, it's £24,555.60. So the total payable to buy the car effectively over your 4-year PCP is £53,638.49 for the Volkswagen, but it's £57,485.33 for the Audi. Tricky one, that. So yeah, if you give the car back at the end of the term, and I know a lot of you guys do, then the Audi is really marginally more expensive. Obviously, you can get a discount off the price that the finance is based on. There's nothing to stop you doing that, and you can still get your deposit contributions. But it's up to you to negotiate with the dealers, and then you might find that the Volkswagen is cheaper, or you might even find the Audi is the cheaper one. So there you go, guys. The Audi on paper is more expensive, but when you drill down and look at the spec, you are getting more for your money. And actually, if you're going to order a Golf R with the sunroof and the leather, that's £3,500 that would buy you the Tech Pack Pro on the S3, which gives you even more stuff. So, but then we still have the issue of the adaptive dampers, and that would force you towards the Vorsprung, which I don't think is value for money. So then I go back to the Golf, and then I don't like the standard interior, then I don't want to pay over £2,000 for the leather, then yeah, I don't think I'll buy either of them. But maybe you will. So as ever, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Keep subscribing, keep commenting, and I'll see you for the next one very soon, which will be a review of the lovely S3 Sportback that is currently sat on my drive, thanks to Audi UK.